from one rich motherfucker with questionable morals to another rich motherfucker with questionable morals. Cristiano Ronaldo has reportedly signed a new $200 million a year deal.
Let's go.
With Saudi Arabian club Al Nassr. They play out of Riyadh in Saudi Arabia. Last year they finished third in the table, and this year they are 3 points out of first as it sits currently. He is slated to join the team in January, and I mean, my question here, my take is that I wouldn't want to be Ronaldo in this situation.
No.
I wouldn't want to go live in Saudi Arabia and play soccer in a desert when I already have all that money.
Like, it doesn't sound so bad when you're making $200 million a year, though. I'm sure you can afford all of the water to be shipped in and all your poop to be shipped out as you want. Shout out the
It's true. Burj
Khalifa.
But my take is coming from the point of view of he was getting offered half that money to go play in Miami.
Yeah.
So if you're going to put those two things on like the little balance scale of 200 mil, but I have to live in Saudi Arabia and I have to deal with all this shit. And, you know, if I step out of line, like, and I talk bad about the club, I'm not just going to get cut like I did at Manchester United. I might get actually cut by some of these crazy Saudis. So I would take the 100 mil and go live in a fucking mansion on the coast of Miami and just live up life and play against some Americans and just shit on everybody and have all of the United States just love you and embrace you.
But he gets to spend half that amount of time in Saudi Arabia, and then he can go move to Miami. I think the real thing is he's going to be over there treated like one of the fucking Saudi royal family members. You know what I mean? Like, he's not going to be out here worrying about what he says. He's got publicists and shit that tell him what's okay and what's not okay to say before each press conference and stuff like that. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think he's taking a bad end of the deal whatsoever. I think he's going to live.
He's definitely not.
You know what I mean? He's going to play out his few years
there. He's getting
there.
a bag and a half.
He's bringing a ton of publicity, good publicity, to the Saudis who fucking need it right now, especially after Biden has now pardoned Mohammed bin Salman from any wrongdoing as it comes to just killing a foreign journalist. Like,
which
the
is
Saudis
wild
need,
because it factually happened.
Yeah, like there's literally proof. But the Saudis need this good press, just like the Qatari government needed the good press of the World Cup. You know what I mean? So they're going to treat Ronaldo well. They're going to pay him a bunch of oil money, which is blood money, which is fine. But I mean, I think the bigger story here is like, how long are we going to let the Middle East buy their way into the good graces of the West? You know what I mean? It's like, yeah, Ronaldo's going to go play there, but is anything going to change because of that? No. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, the World Cup went to Qatar, but is there anything that's going to change for the people that actually live there? No, nothing whatsoever. So instead of the story being, oh, humdrum about, you know, Cristiano, the story is really about, you know, greenwashing all of their atrocities. You know what I mean? We can't let the Middle East keep the status quo and just use their money to do whatever they want, because they will. At every turn they will, and they will push and push and push until they, you know, have greenwashed everything, and they can get away with murdering journalists, and they can get away with killing homosexuals and all these other things. They can get away with stripping rights away from women, you know what I mean? And I know they've pulled themselves into the 21st century, but come on, man. Like, this story isn't about Cristiano Ronaldo. This story is about the Saudi government being pieces of shit. Period.
But there is another side of this story, which I don't know if you've thought about, and it brings us to our next topic of the World Cup. But in my eyes, this now unequivocally settles the debate of the GOAT of this generation of soccer players.
Messi?
It's easily Messi, because they've played for the same length of time. They've been in the Premier League and in the Bundesliga and in the over in France and like these top Premier Leagues of Europe football for the same amount of time. And Messi is outlasting Ronaldo. Ronaldo got dropped by Manchester United because he was unwilling to come off the bench because he's kind of washed, because his style of soccer isn't as finesse play as Messi's is. You know, Messi is Patrick Mahomes, whereas Ronaldo's a little bit more like a Cam Newton that just like tries to beat you down, right? So I think this right here, along with the World Cup, which we're about to get into, I think it kind of settles the debate that Messi is a 1A to Ronaldo's 1B. And I think that this deal right here kind of solidifies it, because Messi's still starting for PSG. Like, and he's still playing at a top tier level, and he still has the ball glued to his foot anytime he's on the pitch and he has possession of the ball. So I think Messi will only continue to solidify that position with, if he's able to get a World Cup for Argentina, if he's able to get that over Ronaldo, and then if he continues to play well at a high level in the Premier Leagues of European football, while Ronaldo's dicking around in Saudi Arabia just, you know, bathing in hundreds, I think it, as far as the football legacy goes, the soccer legacy goes, it's Messi. And I think it's a done conversation at this point.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. I think that's a done conversation. I think there are, you know, different sports, obviously, there are different ways to play them, you know what I mean? And I think this is a really good example of that. So, you know, Ronaldo kind of taking more of the godlike, you know, human physique, you know, specimen made in a laboratory kind of approach that like Ibrahimovic took, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. That like a Zion even comes into the NBA, and you just don't have lasting power with that kind of approach. The way Messi takes it, so much, like you said, so much more finesse, so much more about the, you know, the soft touch than it is the overwhelming power or even the speed. He's extremely fast, but it's like the way he plays is much more about, you know, his soft skills than it is him overpowering you or being taller or jumping higher, mm-hmm. you know, something like that. And I mean, I definitely see where Ronaldo's at with this, you know what I mean? I don't know what he'll think legacy-wise, you know what I mean? I haven't seen any interviews or anything about talking about this, but with everything else on the table already, I would say this is a move for him purely based off of, yeah, just give me the money, dude. You know what I mean? Like, he's not even looking for some kind of legacy push at this point if he's doing that kind of deal, you know what I mean? But it's like a Floyd Mayweather, you know what I mean? Mayweather got so good because you couldn't touch him, you know what I mean? Not mm-hmm. like he was going to knock you out every time, you know? If you're going to knock somebody out every time, the likelihood that you end up getting knocked out just goes up, you know? So it's one of those things.
That's true.
You know?
That's true.
We feel bad for Ronaldo and his $200 million salary.
Yeah. we talk about legacies, man. Football legacies. We are going to get into a little segment that I'm calling Are We Surprised? And first up is a World Cup check-in.
Yeah.
The U.S. lost in the round of 16 to Holland, to the Dutch, to the Netherlands.
Yeah. All
three names, one team. Are we surprised?
No.
Because I'm not.
Not at all.
No,
I mean, I'm surprised that it was like decently close. You know what I mean? Like, it felt like it was a closer game than it should have been, in my opinion. I didn't actually watch most of the game. I only watched the highlights, but it felt like it was closer than it should have been. And the U.S. team still brought back millions of dollars in prize money. So I've heard. I don't know what the number at all.
I have no idea.
Yeah, it was millions at least. So at least so it's always the comparison in the U.S. of the women's team to the men's team. I think the men's team are finally, and I said this like in the last podcast, I think they're finally starting to live up to a little bit of that fucking multi-million-dollar, you know, amount of money that they get per year, whatever it is. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, the budget.
So, I mean, getting to the round of 16 was cool. I never thought we were going to go any farther, and I'm kind of glad we didn't, because I wouldn't want to get embarrassed by, was it Argentina?
Yeah, I think it's...
fucked us up.
I think we got as far as we were expecting to get. And I think that making it out of the group stage in and of itself was an accomplishment.
Big, yeah. I think it's a big accomplishment.
Outside of Andre Yedlin and I think Pulisic, I don't think anybody else on the team had World Cup experience outside of, you know, they didn't have any World Cup experience, but they had, you know, a little bit of international friendlies here and there, but it was a very young and inexperienced team. So for them to make it out of the group stages and into the round of 16. In that game against Holland, they played well. They had a lot of the possession, but as soon as Holland got on the counterattack, there was just absolutely nothing that we were able to do. Their counterattacking was as described, and we knew that coming into the game. So the way that they were able to keep possession and just kind of pepper in that keeper, trying to get some shots on net, it was good. I think it was a good accomplishment. I think it's exactly what they needed to do with the the 2026 World Cup being here in the U.S. because I think they have that experience, and the expectation is going to be we need to make a push. I don't think anybody's going to expect them to legitimately compete for the World Cup, but I think the expectation will then be, okay, we need to make it past the round of 16 at least. Maybe
Definitely.
see if we can get to a semis, because that's the generation is going to be matured. They're going to have next World Cup and the World Cup after that as their window to really make a push and do something big. So I think they laid the groundwork well. Coming up, when are the games? I'm not sure. I think, what is it, Tuesday?
Tuesday and Wednesday are the next games.
Tuesday,
Argentina,
Wednesday.
Croatia on Tuesday.
Yep,
France
Argentina,
and Morocco
Croatia.
on Wednesday. Yeah.
Yep, the storylines here, France looking to repeat. Morocco, the first ever African nation to make it to the semis of the World Cup. Big accomplishment there, huge underdogs.
We love it.
As far as the teams to make it to the round of 16, they were far and away the lowest as far as world rankings go that made it out of the round of 16.
And
Far
nobody
and
has
away.
scored on them yet this tournament, right?
Exactly.
Crazy.
Yeah, they have yet to allow a goal. They are playing France on Tuesday. France has looked poised to repeat this entire tournament. They looked fantastic. They beat England. Harry Kane's legacy, we're talking legacy. Harry Kane's legacy is now kind of on ice after missing that PK that could have tied the game late in the second half.
Harry Kane's legacy. I don't know about that. That's kind of dramatic.
Hey, man.
I know the
His
soccer
legacy
fans
now
are real.
will be
I guess.
in England, bro. That's all they will talk about for the next
It's
4
not
years is how
coming
Harry
home.
Kane
Wow.
missed that penalty and how it's not coming home. Argentina and Croatia, two legacies there. Again, Messi, this is expected to be his last World Cup. Same goes for Luka Modric, who is by far and away the best Croatian-born soccer player, I think, ever, as far as statistics go and like legacy. They did make it to the finals last year, and they lost to France, so we might have a repeat, maybe a revenge game there.
I'm really hoping that Argentina
keep your eyes
squeaks
on.
through, and I'm really hoping that Morocco maintains, bro. How wild would it be?
That would be crazy if Morocco wins the World Cup,
Insane.
not allowing a single goal.
Oh,
that would
that'd
be
be even
like
crazier.
some fucking fairy tale shit.
Bro, their goalie would be set for life, bro. A life.
So moving on to our next Are We Surprised topic, keeping it in line with sports here. Chicago sports.
Hold on.
In general,
Hold on.
what? Screw it.
We left out a topic for the World Cup that I had dropped in late, but I
right,
wanted to
right,
mention.
right.
But I wanted to mention.
Let's talk about this, because this will be a developing story that we'll keep tabs on.
We are gonna have to keep tabs on this one because it's interesting. But this was broken by many different sources. I'm using Bleacher Report right now. But basically all it is this journalist whose name I am bringing up here, something Wall. If my computer wants to load appropriately. Grant Wall is the journalist's name. Soccer journalist Grant Wall has died while at the World Cup in Qatar. And the reason this is interesting, right? So I'm sure which day it was, but last week Wall was actually detained by the Qatari authorities for wearing a gay pride flag shirt to one of the venues. Detained for apparently about half an hour before he was then told that he would not be able to enter with the shirt on, and then eventually entered the cup that day. But then a few days later, while live tweeting the Netherlands game, collapsed and died. His brother is screaming that it reeks of foul play. His wife is saying that he was 48 years old and had no health conditions that would have just caused him to collapse and die and shit. But look out, man. And this is what I'm saying, dude. This is what I'm talking about with the Saudi Arabians, man. They're trying to greenwash this culture of error, dude. And I'm not even trying to use that word in like I'm not going to sugarcoat it, in like a racist sense, because a lot of people would, equate Middle Easternness with being a terrorist, and that is not what I'm doing here. But, this fascist government that, you know, is running the Qatari World Cup, that is running Saudi Arabia, did they kill Grant Wall?
So we will wait and see, and what's going to let's pause the conspiracy theorists, or just pump the brakes on it a little bit, because I mean it does reek of foul play. Right?
48 years old, just collapsed.
48
What?
years old, and to just like collapse like that is it's a tragic death. You know, thoughts and prayers to the family and everybody impacted, and it does reek of foul play. It does make you scratch your chin and kind of look up at the sky and wonder, because of everything that's happened in Saudi Arabia with Jamal Khashoggi, and with you know, things that have happened in similar countries like Russia with poisoning, and the things that the Kremlin has done in the past. It's in China, reports of things like this happening, and it's something that I think, as far as history is concerned, is very prevalent among those authoritarian countries. Your dictatorships, those people in power do whatever they want, and there's no consequences for actions. So I think the first thing that's going to be interesting to keep tabs on is how is this handled between the countries of Qatar and the country of US with getting this man's body back. Because if for one reason or another the Qatari government says no, he's been cremated, here are the ashes, or refuses to send his remains back to the US, any of those possible scenarios happening, raise that threshold a little bit, raise that alarm a little bit more. If they do get him back to the States, and you know, it's difficult to do an autopsy because of how long he'd been there, or if there's ways for them to manipulate this so that, medically speaking, you can't get to the bottom of what actually happened. And if that is to happen, it again just raises those red flags that we have known for a very long time, that Qatar is not a good country, and that they do stuff like this regularly. They detain people, they imprison people for just being gay. They, I believe, have put people to death for homosexuality in Qatar. Fact check me on that. Don't take it 100%. But
I believe
something to keep tabs on, something that we may see some updates later on this year in the program as more news comes out. But just tragic events.
If journalists are not safe in your country, then no one is. You know what I mean? Looking at you, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, Russia, China, the United States. Come on.
That's suspicious. That's
weird. The one thing that you continue to see is that these countries of dictatorships continue to, for some reason, get all of these global events in their facility or in their country, and you continue to see the same shit, like journalists reporting on the sporting events going on in their country, and people of authority, police officers, people from the government pull up on them and say, "Oh, you can't film this."
Yeah, I mean,
break cameras, and it's wild.
It's also really well documented as to why these places will get, you know, play things like the Olympics, things like the World Cup. But it's just because the money there, the dark money, is a lot easier to, you know, bribe people with if you have an authoritarian dictator, as opposed to if all of your spending, you know, on World Cup or Olympic whatever has to be above board and approved and, you know, accounted for. It's like, if you're not accounting for everything and you have a dictator, it's a lot easier to just bribe people to vote for Qatar to be the World Cup country. But yeah, ridiculous. You know what I mean? One of those things where we'll just have to wait and see, but I'm skeptical.
Tragic news out of Qatar, and